Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my fine friends. Welcome to the album wrap episode of season 14 of the Tom Petty Project podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Brown. This is the weekly podcast that digs into the entire Tom Petty catalogue, song by song, album by album, and includes conversations with musicians, fans, and people connected with Tom along the way. I am joined, as I always am, on these season end episodes by my good friend John Paulsen to talk about Highway Companion. But before we get into that, John, who would have thought 9 months ago that we'd be talking about Manchester United finishing 11 points above Liverpool in the league this season? How do you feel about it?
Well, so when was the last time United finished ahead of Liverpool?
That's a good question. It's got to be at least, well, no, he finished third under Solskjaer, so it might be at least
Yeah,
six, 7 years, but it's not been many in the last 20.
it just seems like it's been a really long time. So congratulations, down year for Liverpool, all things considered, after winning the EPL last year. It was kind of a strange season for Liverpool, and I mean, I think Salah dropped off, and he maybe took some unfair criticism, possibly. I don't know what really the ins and outs, but he wasn't producing at his level, his usual level, and that you could kind of feel it throughout the team. But yeah, I mean, they still made Europe, so
Of course.
that's good. So yeah, congratulations, United.
Well, it's funny right, because we are both, we're both sports fans, and we do talk about this lots. And we talked about this, I think, even the episode before when they just, Liverpool made all those signings, and we're talking about, you bring in all these top players, and on paper you think, well, yeah, you look how much stronger that team just got with all these new signings coming in. But the chemistry and the balance, like that's just that intangible thing on a sports team that guy might not work exactly with this other guy the same way the other guy did. And Alexander-Arnold goes out, and like I said, one guy drops off. So it's never a guarantee when you bring in all these superstars.
Yeah, I'm sure our listeners are interested in our EPL takes. I think the way to bring it back is to say the same thing can happen in a band. You bring somebody
Look at
in,
that. What a
doesn't
guy.
always fit, doesn't always fit perfectly, and you have to make another change in order to get things back on track.
Let's get back on track then. Highway Companion, released on July 25th, 2006, recorded at Bungalow Palace and Shoreline Recorders in Los Angeles, which of course is Tom and Jeff's home studios. Released under Warner Brothers and produced by Jeff Lynne, Tom Petty, and Mike Campbell, who also are the only musicians on it. So, in a way, I've always thought of this one as being the only sort of true Tom Petty solo record because there are no co-writes, right? So this is only Tom's songs. There's no co-writes from Jeff, no co-writes from Mike, only three of them, and it was sort of a very relaxed, easy process. So, I wanted to ask you straight off the top. I know that we talked about this where after Wildflowers, the albums were a little bit less frequent in your rotation. Where was this one sitting for you coming into your listening cycle for this episode?
Well, we're really, like, the years are piling up between the albums, and I think when that happens, the band or the artist starts to lose some traction in your life, and it depends on the fan. And what's going on with them and just how much they're paying attention to music. And I'm getting older at this time too. At 2006, I'm out here in California and starting a life, and with my wife, and not yet a father, but getting close. I think I'm looking at his list of albums, and I was still really into Echo. I think I love the Wildflower, She's the One stretch for sure. Echo, still really strong. Started to maybe lose me a little bit with Last TJ,
Right.
although there were some really nice moments on that disc. And then that's 2002. And then 2006, which is now 4 years. I believe I was looking at the years earlier. This is the longest stretch between albums.
Yeah.
And then it's not a Heartbreakers album, so it's a little bit more of a Jeff Lynne acoustic kind of vibe to it. Petty is playing drums on it.
Yep. Yep.
And he was like, I'm pretty proud of myself. It's like, and I was listening, so I was like, oh, I didn't really realize that. So I'm listening to the songs now, he's like, well, they can fix a lot in post.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay. That was pretty funny. Yeah, this was, I would say, I mean, I certainly bought it and listened to it. It wasn't, a heavy listen to me like, Full Moon Fever was,
Right.
But it definitely, I kept it, and I didn't like sell this CD or anything like that. And revisiting these things always, because I listen to it a lot to not only refresh myself, but also to, really listen to these back half songs that I don't know that well,
Right.
over and over again to see what kind of pops out. And there's always a couple that do, and we'll get into that. But I mean, I know it's been creeping up people's rankings, and I know you like it a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty good, probably better than I remembered. But I think in 2006, I'm hoping for the next Wildflowers, and I don't think it's to that level, but I think
Right.
there's definitely some great, like Last DJ, like Echo, great moments on it.
So I was thinking about too, because obviously you saw the band play a lot, and I was thinking about, there's a lot of songs on this album that never got played live. I think half. Actually, I think it's about half the songs never played live. But if you think about that, they're coming into the 30th anniversary tour is this year. Also, you've got the Bogdanovich documentary that's coming out the next year, which they're sort of involved in program. So I do think that this album sort of ended up in that place where it got lost a little bit, where it wasn't really a strong focus for, a 2 year cycle. There was so much other stuff going on around the band at that time. So this project was just like, well, we'll go and do this, and it was great. And they almost like moved past it. It feels like they moved past it fairly quickly. So I mean, obviously, Saving Grace makes the set list fairly regularly from that point on. But do you have any memory of sort of any of the other songs from this album? Ever seen them live?
Uh, you brought that up, and I was like, "Whoa, what have I seen?" I know I've seen Saving Grace live. I believe I saw Square One live.
Right.
And I don't know if I think the tour that I saw them, it was around the 30th anniversary. Saw him in Milwaukee. Chris Stapleton maybe opened for them, or maybe it was the Black Crowes. But I do remember sitting off to the right side of the stage, and Saving Grace was on. I think that was that same tour.
Right.
But I'd have to go back and look at his set list and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you ask me like gun to head, what have I seen live? I would say Saving Grace for sure, and maybe Square One.
Yeah. So there you go, that which is unusual, right? For a 12-song album. I mean, Echo, we've talked about, not a lot of live stuff from there, and She's the One, kind of similar, but that they're sort of outliers, those two. Pretty much every other album, especially on the album tour itself, you're gonna usually hear, I don't know, 3, 4 songs minimum from the album. Even with Petty, as the Mojo tour, lots of stuff from Mojo, Hypnotic Eye. I know they played 3, 4, 5 songs from Hypnotic Eye. So it is, like I said, it's one of those albums that I think just in the public consciousness, maybe why it didn't land as hard is because it didn't get as much of a push. But also, if you look at what was in the charts at the time too, you look back to Black Amy Winehouse, Stadium Arcadium, Red Hot Chili Peppers, James Blunt, Back to Bedlam, and Future Sex, Love Sounds by Justin Timberlake. The landscape's changed so much in 2006 that, a 50-some-year-old, 56-year-old rocker, he's just not going to get the airtime that they used to, right?
And it's also a solo album. So how invested is the band in it and wanting to play the songs and everything? And then it's also just not a big rock album.
Right.
I mean, there's a few up-tempo ones and stuff, but I mean, a lot of these songs probably aren't going to get played just because of the nature of the song,
Yeah.
as well. So I mean, I think it's a culmination of a number of things.
Be interested to hear what Benmont thought about this, because we know that Benmont wasn't enthusiastic about Full Moon Fever, and that way it all went down. He sort of always thought that Wildflowers was a Heartbreakers record anyway, so in his head, you know what I mean? So, but I've never heard him talk about Highway Companion and sort of offer any of his thoughts on exactly that. Like, how enthusiastic would you be about playing Night Driver or Turn This Car Around if you weren't there? Mike was there, right? Mike was there and he
Right.
recorded everything, so it's a bit different for him. But
Yeah, I wonder whether Benmont's like, why don't you want me playing piano on your keyboard on your
yeah,
solo album?
I mean that's the thing, right? It's a tricky one because Jeff Lynne's a good piano player.
Yeah.
He is a good piano. He's not a Ben Montench. He's nowhere near that level, but he is a good piano player. And of course, especially with these types of songs, I think they shared. I think Tom also played some keyboards.
Mhm.
Don't think Mike did. He played vibraphone on Golden Rose, but you've got Jeff Lynne there, who's like, again, he's the Swiss Army knife. He's like Scott Thurston. He's like, well, what do you need? Whatever you need me to play, I'll go and play it. Apart from the drums, obviously. So with the drums, let's talk about that super quickly. Then Petty playing drums like that. When I found that out, I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And of course, you said, Tom said, you can fix a lot in post, and I'm sure a lot of it was comped where two or three or four different takes, and they take the bits where it was in time and it was good, and they'll use that and they'll put that in there. And of course, you can also Jeff Lynne was a big proponent of, well, let's just play the kick and the snare. Now we'll go back and we'll dub the cymbals on. Now we'll go back and we'll dub the toms on. So you can do it. And if you've got a guy who's less proficient on drums, you can build it up that way too. But what did you think of the drums overall?
Well, I thought that going back and listening to it specifically to listen to Tom play the drums,
Yeah.
I think it was simpler than what you would get with Steve Ferrone or Stan Lynch.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. There were a few moments of like, oh, like, hey, you go, Tom. Like, there's a few like little breakdowns or little flourishes. And who knows if how many times it took him to do that or how they had to fix it. But he was proud of himself. Like, he was like, I hadn't played drums much, but he thought he did a pretty good job. So it was a click track and all this other kind of stuff happening. But yeah, I mean, pretty rudimentary is probably the wrong word because it is just a Tom Petty album. So like but it's just probably several levels below what you would have gotten with and a different style than what you get with Lynch or Ferrone.
Absolutely. It gives the album a different feel because your rhythm section's a big part of what an album sounds like overall, right? Yeah, but I mean, Simple's not. I mean, that people think Simple's good sometimes, and especially with Tom Petty songs when he strips everything back. Simple can really, really work. I mean, that's what Ferrone said, right? When he came in, they kept saying, "No, no, Steve, you're doing a bit too much. Let's just pull that back. All we need is the backbeat. We don't need too many fills. Don't do too much." And not doing too much as a drummer, I can tell you, is difficult sometimes because when you've got all those drums, you want to hit them all,
And you're that good.
And well,
like Ferrone's level is like, whoa, yeah, just play it simple.
3 singles from the album. Only one of them charted in the US on the Billboard, Saving Grace. Hit 100. Even so, we've said all that. We talked about Justin Timberlake and Amy Winehouse and Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that's the sort of the environment at the time. But even so, I think only 100 for Saving Grace because it's got you talking about Petty. You got the little clicks right on the hat stand or whatever he's playing it on, or probably on the rim of the snare or something. And you think it's got a personality, it's got a swing, it's got a groove. I would have thought that would have charted higher than 100.
Yeah, I mean, Saving Grace. They changed. I think they changed this to the opening track. As I was reading the Zollo book, it sounded like "Turn This Car Around" was the original opening track.
But crazy.
Yeah, which I have my thoughts about that track. But I mean, Saving Grace is a great opener for this album, and I think it just shows you how the music industry had changed at this point. Maybe it's a blessing that it charted at all.
Yeah. True enough. Yeah, Floating with Time and Big Weekend, obviously, with the other two singles, neither of which charted. And Floating with Time, again, it's such a throwback song. We'll end up getting into talking about it, but it's such a 60s sounding song that, again, at the time, maybe it doesn't work. And maybe Big Weekend's just a wee bit too country, but not enough country, or not pop country enough, you know what I mean? So that it falls maybe in that hinterland between the two things. So,
well, Saving Grace, I just was looking at the charts first. Went to number 1 in AAA. So, I mean, it was in its genre, it was a pretty big hit for him at the time. Yeah.
What does that actually mean? Do people, like, if you talk about the AAA chart, like the average person or the average person in our generation, would they be aware of that? Would they be thinking about that? Or is that?
Well, AAA here is, I mean, it's adult album. No, I'm blanking on the alternative. I don't think
alternatives.
It might be adult. I don't think it's alternative. What does the AAA stand for? Oh, adult alternative airplay.
Right. Okay.
So in AAA, so it's like one of my favorite stations on Sirius XM is the Spectrum, and they play everything from Van Morrison all the way up to new stuff like Head in the Heart or a new Petty song or whatever. So it's a wide range. So that's the type of stations that are out there that would be playing a new Petty album or a new Petty track pretty heavily. Whereas, it charted to 100, there had to be some like classic rock stations playing it as well. But, AAA tends to be kind of this amalgamation of kind of folk rock, roots rock, Stones, Beatles, all the way up to stuff that's come out now that's sort of inspired by that. Nathaniel Rateliff, Head in the Heart, the Lumineers, that kind of stuff.
I gotcha. Because yeah, and 26 in the US rock chart too, though. Saving Grace, we should say that too, which I think is probably that next step up, right? So AAA is probably the lower, the lesser of the three. Then if you're getting on the rock chart, that's a little bit of a
Yeah.
step up, and then obviously the Billboard. But
And I think it's just the number of stations that are probably fall into each category.
right,
So, yeah.
that makes sense. And I mean, again, I mean, the Billboard chart is mainly Taylor Swift, Sabrina Carpenter. It's that kind of act, and it has been for a long time. It moved to that in the 80s, and rock never really recovered, right? But
And you look at the AAA, it's, Walls went to number one. Free Girl Now went to 3. Room at the Top went to 1. The Last DJ went to 12. Flirting with Time went to 18.
yeah,
So he had a presence on that type of station for quite some time.
yeah, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
All right, well, shall we get into it? Shall we start talking about songs?
Sure. Let's do it.
Lead us off.
Well, I think it's a strong start, and back to back with Saving Grace and Square One, two very different songs too. Like I gave Saving Grace a 9 out of 10, maybe 9.5 out of 10. Square One is one of my favorite songs of his, 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
gorgeous. So, but just a completely different type of song than Saving Grace, obviously. I think it's a really strong way to start the album, and I'm glad that they did that as opposed to opening it with Turn This Car Around. Square One specifically, Struggle to See Past My Nose, Always Had More Dogs Than Bones. Camp, the band, one of my favorite newer bands, Camp, does a really good cover of this. I would highly recommend you checking it out. The vocalist has a very distinct way of singing, and it makes it even, and that, Petty does a great job with it, but it makes it even more emotive, I think, is maybe the word I'm looking for.
Okay.
It was on the Elizabethtown soundtrack along with It'll All Work Out. Cameron Crowe wrote and directed that movie. Pretty good movie too, if you want to check it out. But two Petty tracks on that, which is because they went way back. So it was nominated for a Grammy as well. So I don't know how much you want to talk about Saving Grace. We did touch on it, but it's a rocker and a great opener. And then Square One, I think, is a great follow up.
Well, so you talked about that, right? I mean, Turn This Car Around, and when you read the Zollo book, obviously that album's not out yet and it's not finished yet. And Tom calls Paul and says, "Hey, come back down. I've got these new songs to play." And so I do wonder whether Saving Grace hadn't even been written at that point, because if you've not got Saving Grace, I think Turn This Car Around sort of works because of what this album is. If it's a road album, I sort of get why Turn This Car Around might be your thought for, well, let's lead the album in this. But as soon as you've got Saving Grace, then it's like, okay, well, that's the opener. There's no other song that you're ever going to put up top if you've got Saving Grace. So I'd be interested to know. We know some of the sequence because Tom talks about, oh, we did that one first, or recorded this one first, or whatever, or this was late today, but we don't know about Saving Grace. I'd be interested to know if that was even maybe like, I don't think we've got a big single off this album. I'll try and write one. So I kind of wonder about that with it too,
Yeah, so when you mentioned that, was Saving Grace mentioned in the book, I was thinking to myself as I was counting the songs to try to see if they were all mentioned, and I thought Saving Grace was. I did a search here, but it's AI, so it's like probably 80% accurate. It says, yes, it was mentioned and discussed in Still's book, Conversations with Tom Petty. The extended editions of the book, Petty reveals to Zollo that he was initially stuck on a couple lines for the track and actually asked his wife, Dana Petty, for help with the lyrics, and Dana contributed lines in A Crowd All Alone, walking around in a song to the song. Does that sound correct to you?
No, Damaged by Love was the song that she contributed to. So yeah,
this is a good exercise to pull up AI. So you can't trust it. You really do have to
trust it. I started using it to do some of the research. I thought I would start using it. I don't know, like 9 months ago. I thought, I wonder if I can pull information in, and very quickly I'm like, well, even I know that just on sight, I know that that's just not just wrong, but in some cases, that's just made up. That's just, you're not basing that on a quote, on any kind of lyric, making lyrics up. Like, okay, well, I just can't use this then. So
they're hallucinating, and I think that's I only brought this up so that we wouldn't get replaced as podcast hosts by AI. You need humans out here to make honest mistakes. I don't know, but,
absolutely.
I'll have to look at it again. I thought all 14 tracks were mentioned in the book, and then I was trying to figure out what that track. He did talk about a track that he was struggling with at the end, And I was trying to figure out which one that was, and I thought all 14 were mentioned, so it wasn't one of the 14. That was my deduction, but I don't know if that's even 100% accurate too. Now I'm really wondering.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see myself. I don't know if he did talk about saving grace, you know. I don't think he did. Which again leads me to wonder whether it was after that, right? Like that's why I think it was sort of a replacement later. And like I said, as soon as you've got that one, that's your album opener. But not a 10, hey? Not a 10 out of 10. That's interesting.
Nine, 9 out of 5, almost a 10. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's up there. It's up there. I gave it a 9. I'm like, why is it a 9? I think I'm probably 9.5. I just think square one. I wanted to leave a 10 for square one.
Yeah. We don't usually do that. We don't usually go through your scores. So I kind of like it when you tell me what your scores would be. So, all right. Do you have any other 10s without revealing what they would be? Do you have any other 10s on this album?
No,
Mm, okay. Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
sure you do.
I think I'm free. I'm free with the 10s, man. I think I got 4. I think it was 4 on this album. So,
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah. All right. Flirting with Time. Like he says, he tells Paul Zollo, I'm still not dead sure what that song's about. I just followed my nose until the end of it. And that's, again, as a hobbyist, I'll put that in very, very bold, italic, underlined letters, hobbyist songwriter. Sometimes that happens where you might have a verse and you might have the chorus and the main melody, but you're not really exactly sure. You don't know if there's going to be a bridge and what it might be. And so sometimes it's really enjoyable when that kind of stuff just comes out. And so I like that, even, the great Tom Petty says, I don't know what it's about. And that's fine, right? I think it's okay to not know what a song's about always.
Yeah, I think it's a good follow up to square one to pick up the pace. I gave this one a 7.5. Maybe it should be an 8. And, as I listen to the albums, the over and over again, the scores tend to move up a little bit as I revisit stuff. But
Of course.
this is a good one. It's just a fairly simple song, I would say,
Mhm.
but catchy. And did you say this was a single as well?
Yes. Yeah. Second
Okay,
single. Yeah.
which makes sense. I mean, they want to put the stuff up front in the first half. I like this track.
Yeah. And it's one of those songs where Petty does that Petty thing where part of it's narrative, where he's talking about someone or he's setting a specific scene, and then he pulls off in the second or third verse and gives you like just a bit of wisdom or something. And then he comes back to, or he'll abandon that or he'll give you a different vignette. And I love that style of writing that not everyone can pull off, but Petty always manages to.
Yeah, this one finished, I think I mentioned earlier, 18 on Triple A chart.
Yeah.
Good track. And Down South coming in after that. This is a great one. Obviously, this one has kind of taken on a more of a life of its own after his death. I think it's sort of an ode, not just to the South, but to Florida. And some really good lyrics in this one.
Oh, yeah.
Gonna see my daddy's mistress, gonna buy back her forgiveness, pay
Yeah.
off every witness.
Yeah.
And then, so if I come to your door, let me sleep on your floor. I give you all I have and a little more. And then I pulled a quote from the book. I've rarely written something that I felt so good about. It's up there in my top 10 things I ever did. So obviously, Tom
Yeah.
really liked his work on Down South.
Well, and I would I've kind of written myself that if you ever want to point someone to a line that only Petty would have written, create myself down south, impress all the women, pretend I'm Samuel Clemens, wear seersucker and white linens. There's not many people would write that line. And it's such a vivid,
He's like, people around me didn't know who Samuel Clemens was.
Yeah. Even I knew that, and I'm an old,
Yeah.
stinky old Brit,
I knew that one, yeah. But seersucker, you can picture it. The seersucker suit.
That's the funny thing, though, right? Because I didn't know what seersucker was. That's the one I had to look up. I knew Samuel Clemens was. I've never heard of seersucker. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool.
It's like somebody in Savannah would be wearing a seersucker suit.
Yeah, keep the heat off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that when I came back round to, getting back into them and listening to lots more for the podcast, that's one of the ones that stood out on this record. Just because it's got so much personality and it's got that sort of, I love that. What would happen if I go back now? And we've talked about this before, we both live away from where we were brought up. And when you go back, it's always interesting to see what's changed. Do I still feel the same connection to these places? So I love the idea that Tom, having done Southern accents and has already written about the South, and written about the South and other songs. What would, at 56, how would I feel now if I went back down there? What am I going to write about now if I'm writing about the South? So I like that revisit.
Yeah. And he mentioned that he's been away so long. So this is definitely like a, perspective of he's a Californian at this point in his life. He loved California. But he also respected his upbringing and where he grew up, and wrote about it quite a bit. But this has the third most streams on the album, 6.2 million. Saving Grace, 21.2 million, or 21.3. And a little bit surprising to me that Square One isn't higher, but 14.6 million streams for Square One.
Okay, let's get on to Jack. Because I wanted to ask you, did you catch what's the name of that band? Gautier or Gautier, whatever their name is. That's somebody that I used to know.
Mhm.
I remember because definitely heard that song before I remember hearing Jack. And as soon as I'm ding, 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 I was like, bloody hell, that's a straight lift. They've lifted. I mean, I think it's in a one step up or something key wise, but just the rhythm of it, the tempo of it, the feel of it. It's like, yeah, that's where they've got that from 100%.
I didn't catch it. I question whether or not Gautier ever listened to Highway Companion. I mean,
Well,
I don't like if this was on the radio, I would say okay, sure, but you know, I don't know. I think maybe it was a similar sprung idea, not
yeah.
something that unless he says, his favorite album is Highway Companion. I would be surprised. This is not my favorite. I just the way it's kind of constructed kind of bugs me a little bit. I gave it a 5 out of 10, and it's
Yeah.
one that I would replace with one of the extra tracks if I were to do a alternate version, which I did put together.
Yeah.
It is kind of a rocker, but not for me.
It's funny too because this is one Tom plays drums, keyboard. He plays rhythm on this probably because obviously Jeff Lynne, there's always lots of rhythm guitar in there, and but he plays lead on this as well. So I always think with this one too that maybe it's one of those that is done in the dead of night, and you get that emotional attachment to it that because to me this is the least strong song on the album, and I don't like to use the word weak with petty songs, but it's definitely the one that when we get to our producer for the day. Well, we'll have to see if it makes the album because I don't know if it's going to make the cut for me either. So.
Well, it's interesting. I didn't know where you stood on a lot of these tracks, and we both kind of identified it as one of the not as strong ones that we might think about replacing.
It's just an album track, right? And again, I mean, I don't mind decent album tracks. I'm not one of those people who thinks everything should be a hit. I love that we got the conversation with Tom Petty in the background. They're just artfully placed over the right shoulder.
Over my shoulder.
Yeah.
As I criticize his song, Jack.
Which is the devil and the angel? Which one's on the right shoulder? That must be the angel then on the right shoulder, right? So
yeah.
Okay, turn this car around. You said, it was the opener. So
this is a really interesting song because I would describe it as like a plotter, P-O-L-D-D-E-R. I don't know if that's a phrase in British English or whatever, but it just kind of is done very repetitive, and normally I would not gravitate to that, and I don't really love that part of it.
Right.
But at the 144 mark, when it kicks into the and then he's like, I'm going back.
Yeah.
It's like an amazing section, like a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like potential there. But then it only does it once. So you want to hear it again, and he doesn't do it again. And then it goes back to the kind of the plotter. So like, this is one where I would leave it on, certainly on, because we don't have a ton of material to be swapping in and out, but
of course
I would leave it on for that moment. And I would listen to this song because of that moment. But this is like, I think there was a ton of potential with that if he had expanded it, but maybe he didn't want to because he's done it before, or it did sort of sound that guitar right before that section sounded like Somewhere Under Heaven, or some of the Wildflower stuff as well. So it kind of brought back that memory for me, and I thought it was like, he's like, I'm going back, and I was like, oh yeah, that's nasty. Let's do that 3 more times before the end of the song.
But that's the thing. I mean, I think that's why it stands out so much, is because it's only used once. Because it is the bridge section, and it's such a good bridge. We think even if you write that bridge to songwriter, you go, I'm going to take the rest of the week off because that's I've done enough to justify a week off now.
And not why not use the bridge twice? I don't know. Like the
Yeah.
bridge is better than the rest of the song. It doesn't happen often, but um, he that was a good one, a
It
really
was
good one.
also a grower for me, that one. Definitely not one that sort of, as you say, apart from the bridge section, one that took a little bit of time where I really like that groove now.
Okay.
And I think partially because I know that that's coming as well, right? When you know the bridge is coming and you're waiting for it, it's kind of like In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. It's kind
Hmm.
of very slow and ponderous and it's dark and anthemic and everything else, but you're just waiting for those drums to come in. Right. I'm sort of the
Yeah.
same thing with Turn This Car In, so I'm okay with the anticipation of it.
So what? Just one more time before the end of it would have been nice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And again, like, had they ever done it, if they carried on doing it live, because that was the other thing about this one. It was played 18 times live, but all in 2005 before the album was released,
Interesting.
which is odd. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that's the song out of all the songs. I suppose if it was supposed to be the opener originally, maybe they were priming people. But it was virtually ever present in, I think it was June 7th to July 15th in 2005. It was played pretty much every gig in that little run.
Where did it rank in terms of most times played live on this album or from this album?
Oh God, it's up there because not a lot of these songs were played live. I think it's like, I want to say fourth. I think Saving Grace Square One, uh, maybe it's third then even. Oh, Down South I think is third, and then Turn This Car In. I think it's fourth. So it's which at 18 times played live, for that to be the fourth most, again, is just very unusual for a Petty album.
Well, it's worth it for that one moment. I'm just saying, put it in there twice. But what do I know? I'm not Tom. I'm not gonna
we're,
tell Tom Petty how to
we're not Hall of
construct
Fame
his songs.
songwriters.
No.
Yeah. Oh, my next 10, the last 10 that I have on this album, though, Big Weekend, man. I mean, come on. If that's not a 10, I don't know. What brings you joy, John, if it's not Big Weekend?
Well, I don't hand tens out like candy on Halloween. I like it. So the way I sort of do it is like a 5/6 is kind of a album track, which is it's pretty good, but it's
Yeah.
it's Petty, so it's not like a 4 or 2. I mean, I've had a couple that I don't just really don't like, but nothing like that really on this album. Big Weekend for me is like an 8, so it's like a solid playlist track. I
Yeah.
want to hear it. This was one of my favorite tracks on initial listen. I remember liking this in 2006, 2007. So, and I think this is like one that I would point to if, you know, anybody told me that Tom Petty couldn't write a killer country album.
Yeah.
Because if he goes, he always shied away from it. Even though he had it in his toolbox, he didn't never wanted to sound country, but he could have done it so easily. All it would take with some of these tracks is just a little tweak here and there, and it should be on country radio. He would have been a big country artist. I don't think that's what he wanted.
Yeah.
He's more of a heartland rocker, but California rocker. But um, this is definitely like one I would say here. I could, you, I think we could probably go through, and then maybe that'd be an interesting podcast, is to go through his whole discography and put together a country album.
Yeah. That would be fun to do,
That would be
actually.
a fun one to do
Okay,
because this would be on there.
when we do that though, are we allowed Mudcrutch, or are we just talking Petty and solo canon?
Well, I guess
So
we have to try to do Petty and Heartbreakers and see where we're at with
yeah,
content, because Mudcrutch is definitely angles that direction
yeah.
more than his other stuff.
Well, I'm on board with this. I think that because we've only got two more albums to wrap
Yeah,
after this, and then we're into B-sides and everything. We'll have to figure out how we're going to do those. But I think a few one-off episodes like that, and let's put together the ultimate Tom Petty country album. I think it'd be a great thing to do.
it'd be fun.
Fully on
And we
board with
got maybe have some Johnny Cash guest spots in there too. We'll see.
that. Night Driver.
Yeah, so Night Driver is the other sub 6 for me on this one.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, are you a big fan of it? I'm not going to bag on it. It just not my favorite.
I like the vibe of it. And Tom's playing that Rhodes, and I'm a sucker for a Rhodes piano. As soon as you get that beautiful Rhodes coming in, there's just something about the feel of it. Is it one of Tom Petty's best songs? No. And is it a little bit long? Maybe. You could probably argue at 4.5 minutes, being I think the second longest track on the album. Yeah, I could sort of see an argument for trimming it or doing something with it. Um, but I sort of written down that, I like albums like Full Moon Fever and Wildflowers where you think, well, Jesus, like most of this record could be a single. Definitely not the case on Highway Companion. And I do like an album that it's built around sort of a central idea or a theme. And this song, Night Driver, really, really fits the theme of the record. So I like it for that, and I like it as an album track. So
Okay. I would, this is one of two that I would replace when we get to producer of the day if I were to
okay.
have that sort of control.
Well, I'm interested to see what your sequence is going to be then, because we've already talked about the other one. So we've only got 2 additional tracks. So, okay. All right. Okay. So the song that Dana helped on, Damaged by Love. So in a crowd all alone, walking around in a song, that was hers. And again, it's a good line, man. It's like, because I'd actually posted on the Tom Petty Nation on Facebook. And so, and asked, like, has she ever written, you post these things out, you don't expect these people to get back to you. And so have you ever thought, did you ever write anything else? And she said no, but she was always kind of encouraged by Tom and was super, super pleased that line ended up in a song. So be a good trivia question, right? Because outside of Mike Campbell, Jeff Lynne, Dave Stewart, Bob Dylan, I think that she's the only other person who's contributed lyrics to a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers song, I think.
That's a good trivia question. But you'd have to, it'd be hard to prove anybody else did or didn't.
This is true. Yes, this is true.
Damaged by Love, this one definitely grew on me over this. It's often ones on the back half of the CD that, because I'm listening to the thing over and over again, the whole sequence. And I say CD, but the back half of the album. I like it's a sad song. I like the lyric, she's got nothing to hide and she hides it so well.
Yeah.
Keeps broken dreams to fix up and sell. I just thought that was a good sequence of lyrics there for Tom. And Tom did say, he goes, I don't do it often, but I asked Dana. I couldn't get he goes like, I just wanted everybody to know I don't do it often.
Yeah.
But I asked her and she came up with a good one. So maybe you should have asked her a couple more times.
You just brought that up to them, and I say this, people who listen to this podcast regularly will get sick of me saying it, but there's almost always, at least one line in every Petty song where you just go, oh, that's good. And you just quote one, and it's just like these little effortless things. And again, dreams that to fix up and sell, it doesn't actually really scan practically, but just poetically and sort of in terms of the imagery, you know exactly what he means. And he's so good at that kind of that abstract, sort of emotive writing. I think is brilliant. Unparalleled.
Yeah, and the keeping the broken dreams to fix up and sell, I think is that it's so good together.
The other notes on this one I'd made too, and I was kind of, this would be another good one to do, maybe another good sort of episode to do. If you think about MTV Unplugged, and Petty never did an MTV Unplugged, this would have been a good one to do Unplugged, because you could have, maybe bring in a string section for this and sort of build it up that way and have Mike play a National Steel or something in those little accented sections in the solo. That would be a really good one to hear stripped down, I think, even.
Yeah, I feel like he did do something live, soundstage or something, where he was telling some stories, but it wasn't.
He did soundstage, but
it wasn't a proper unplugged.
Right.
But I mean, I think there was some storytelling going on there, but it was a different era of his.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that. He'd be so good at the between song aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because he just turns a phrase and he's so funny and dry. Sardonic.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, This Old Town, the 10th track.
This is another one that grew on me. Not surprising, it's on the back half of the album, grew on me. But it's about a guy who's just sad where he's living.
Yeah.
It just sounds like a crappy town. But there's some, it ties your hands, it spikes your drink. I'd say more, but I can't think. And he's just like, it doesn't sound like there's any relationships are going well, a lot of alcohol going on. It sounds like not a great place to live, kind of a downer song, but I like it. 7 out of 10 for me.
One thing I've sort of written about this one too, and I would be curious, and you probably didn't know, maybe clock it as you were listening, but when you go back and listen to it, to me, because these songs were recorded at Tom's house and Jeff's house, and this gets into sort of super nerdy production stuff, but you can hear the room. Like, when you listen to those Wildflowers demos, you can hear when this song starts, because it's so bare, you can really hear that room. And so as soon as I heard it, I'm like, this has got to be, the not bungalow, the Shoreline recording studios. That's got to be where it is. So then I went back to the book and I'm like, I'm trying to scan through, and he said, yeah, he wrote this one and recorded most of it at his house and then took it over to Jeff's and they finished it up there. But it's like, you can hear the room. Like, it sounds like that goddamn room, which is funny, right? Because people think, well, everything's mic'd, a room's a room. Nah, man, rooms have specific character and you can hear it in this song.
For sure. I mean, the environment and how close the walls are, how much sound the walls absorb and don't
Yep.
absorb or reflect. I mean, it absolutely changes room to room. So it's hard to, I think, you know, if you're using multiple different rooms that sound that different, it's probably really difficult to get things to sound cohesive in an album like this.
Absolutely. Unless you're Def Leppard, in which case it doesn't matter because it's all going through, it's getting through, filtered through a million different effects anyway. So I gotta get my dislike for Def Leppard into every podcast I'm on. So at some point. So,
Hilarious. That's hilarious. Ankle Deep. So this is one where, I mean, it's about I looked up the story of it. He was talking about, I was reading the thing. I was like, well, I don't always, when I'm really listening to the lyrics and the story that's going on if I'm working or something on the side. So then I sat down and just listened to it. He's talking about it's a daughter who steals a racehorse or some kind of horse from her father, who's a Bible thumper.
yeah.
And it sounds like the worker helps her, kind of fell for her, and then she fell off the horse perhaps and couldn't talk for a couple of weeks. And
Yeah.
and then it seems like he was about to spank her at the end, and maybe it's a single father because the mother is gone because of her lyric at the end there about "you've been a mother to me."
Yeah.
Maybe that was her way of getting out of the spanking. I don't know exactly what was going on. Interesting story. Ankle deep in love, like
It's so funny. It's so petty.
that doesn't seem like it's very in love, or
No,
not a
it's
lot of love there. Ankle
that's what I
deep,
love about it.
right?
Yeah, you're not up to your neck in it.
Not
It's
neck deep,
ankle
bro.
deep. It's brilliant. I just think that's such a petty thing to write. Yeah, and
So,
I love that line too. The stolen horse spooked and tumbled. She didn't speak for a week, just kind of mumbled.
yeah.
So
And
good.
you can really hear the Jeff Lynne guitars on this. This
Mhm.
sounds a lot like, Full Moon Fever, Into the Great Wide Open type stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I'd even written that for this one, maybe. That it sort of fits on. Oh, actually, no, there's a different one. This one too, but there's one of the two additional tracks really sounds to me like Into the Great Wide Open era. But you're right. I mean, those big jangly guitars, obviously, with the 12 string and the acoustics together. But album closer. What do you think of this one?
I think it's a good album closer. I think we talked about what he usually does at the end of his albums. It's kind of wistful, sad, melancholy type songs. The Golden Rose, he's writing about a riverboat
Yeah.
captain, and he's like, well, the captain who swears if he speaks at all wears a gun, got a first mate who's never quite on the ball for a son. And it's basically just kind of a very quick, it's a longer song. It's the longest one on the album.
Mhm.
Um, but the story's kind of quick about it. It's just this girl that brought him on this riverboat, and then he lost her and wishes he was still with her.
Yeah.
And the Golden Rose, I assume, is the name of the boat, or it's the name of the girl. I don't
Well,
know which.
I think it's
Go ahead.
both, right? Because it does say
Okay.
that the Golden Rose sailed with a broken man going south. That's so it is the name of the ship. But I think metaphorically, the Golden Rose is the girl he lost, right? And then the
Yeah.
thorns. You could even on the stem, you could bring that in. So a really good piece of writing. But
Yeah. And I think it's a good closer for this album specifically, just given, I think that, there have been better album closers for him, but
yeah,
this, given what the tracks we have here in front of us, this is a great one for him to pick as the album closer.
it's also the only song on the album. Again, this happens a few times with Petty when we talk about these the sets of songs that we're talking about. We think really this is the only song you can put in the last place. It wouldn't really work anywhere else on the album, and nothing else would finish the album as strongly.
Yeah. Well, square one, but why would you put it last?
Yeah.
That's the only one I could think that would work. And might go down as one of the greatest album closers in his discography, but I think having it second makes more sense.
Yeah, it would be the very definition of burying the lead, wouldn't
Yeah. It's like putting American Girl last, right?
it? Did you see that? Have you heard the new mix of that, the 2026 mix?
No, I haven't yet.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think probably the original, the way they they finished the original, I think is probably the right way to do it. But it's always
Okay.
interesting listening to the stuff that happened after the fade is always fun to listen to, right? So
Yeah. I have to listen to that. I didn't, I saw a single come through and I was like, what is going on?
yeah,
What are we re-releasing here?
what's the 50th
I haven't,
anniversary? Isn't it?
that's right. You gotta
Oh,
strike while the iron is hot still.
absolutely. But so Golden Rose, though, the one note I'd made, or one of the other notes I've made, is it's one that sounds kind of, you can sort of see it drifting into Mojo. It's a song that could sort of fit on Mojo. If you think about First Flash of Freedom and Trip to Pirates Cove, maybe that again are a little bit more subdued and a bit, so they've got that swing to the din, dit, 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 din. It's got that little bit of flow to it. Would sort of fit on there. And I think adding, if Mike played a little bit more of that Les Paul, that bluesy Les Paul guitar on it, probably would sit in that set of songs as well, I think.
Well, then you look at Mojo's coming out in 2010, so that's another 4 years. He has a Mudcrutch album that comes out in 2008. The time between Last DJ, which was the last Heartbreakers album, right? And Mojo, which is the next Heartbreakers album, 8 years.
Yeah.
That's a long stretch between
Long
Heartbreakers
stretch.
albums. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm sure the Heartbreakers weren't crazy about that.
Yeah. They were still out on the road though, right? So they were still
Yeah.
playing. So
Yeah.
I don't think we're too bothered. And that's the other thing too. And we'll get into this maybe once we're done as well. I'm definitely thinking about doing a few episodes on this. If you look at the session work that those guys did, especially when you get into the 90s and 2000s, it's staggering how often, especially Benmont, just turns up on albums and stuff that you just wouldn't think of. Like Blaze of Glory by John Bon Jovi, Benmont Tench plays most of the keyboards on that album, or you see, obviously the Johnny Cash albums and all that, because they're just everywhere. So fill in the blanks, right? Well, Tom doesn't need us, so I'm
We gotta work.
gonna pay the bills. So
pay that mortgage.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of B-sides, I guess. This is Home and Around the Roses. So we have another track with a rose in the title, which influenced my ultimate track listing, because you can't have two tracks with the word rose in the title on the same side of the album. That's my rule.
It was a big impact on my decision to not include it. So yeah.
Okay, so you didn't include it. I decided to include it. I like both of these tracks more than Jack and more than Night Driver, and that's why I ended up replacing those two with these two. Home, because you wanted kind of a rocker, but you don't. I didn't do a 1-for-1 replacement with Jack. But that's sort of, it replaced it in spirit on the album.
Right.
I like Left Town in a Hurry, Blackmailed the Judge and Jury, Had His Fingers in Too Many Pies.
Yeah.
You'll Spill the Honey, You're Gonna Get Flies. I thought that was great. This is I just think it's a little bit better than Jack. And I gave this one a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. It's an 8 for me too, because the bass line in this one, it's like, oh man, that is just cooking. Like, that's the other thing with Jeff Lynne, right? I mean, he's the ELO guy, and he's the Roy Orbison guy, and he's the Tom Petty and the Wilburys guy, but you sort of forget how good a musician that guy is. And if he needs to cut loose and shred on guitar, on bass, on whatever, he can do it. And the bass line in that song is just fantastic. Love the big vocal harmonies, and it's got that rollicking solo section in it. It is, when you listen to it, you're like, I sort of see why it didn't make the album, sort of, because most of the rest of the album is a bit more laid back, and there isn't that real big, massive rock and roll number. So maybe it would be jarring, but God, it's such a good song that it had to. That one made it on for sure for me. Home.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's better than some of what made it. And I think you're getting to a point in his career where you've got like a smoother. Like sometimes earlier on, there's some B-sides that were not as great, and you could see why they left them off, or they're really good, and you're just like, why'd you leave this off? But I think more consistent songwriting, you're going to have, reasonable people differ on what should have gone on, what shouldn't have gone on the album. This one for me I just like to listen to it more than Jack. So that there's a replacement there, but not a direct replacement. I'll go through that in a second. But Around the Roses, I gave this one a 6.5 out of 10, 7 out of 10. I think it's a 7 for me now, but the melody that he's singing in the verses, and then it's mirrored by the slide guitar after the chorus in the same melody, really appealed to me. Like, this is probably because I texted you last night. I'm like, what are the B-sides for this? And I was like, do I have these? And I'm, this showed up on like was it a Best Buy version of this album? Or
yeah, there was a special edition, a deluxe edition. I can't remember exactly. It was special or deluxe in it, and it's different, slightly different album cover. I don't know why you changed the album cover, but then just with these two on the CD, and it was only on CD. So, and
then there was 2 demos as well that
Big Weekend,
okay, which like demos don't really do it for me unless it's a new song, but or it's a great demo that's better than which is not often. So I was like, where do I find these? I was looking on YouTube. I was like, I didn't realize that I already had them in my iTunes when I had at some point got them into iTunes. I had found those. So I was listening to those over and over again just to try to get a feel and try to get them up to the same number of listens as some of these songs so that I could
Yeah.
sort of decide if I wanted to make these changes. And, by the, I don't know, fifth or sixth listen to Around the Roses, like, I was like, okay, I do like this melody that he's singing, and I do like that the slide guitar that comes in. I think it fits really well on the album, so I'll let you know where I put that in a minute.
Okay. Yeah, this one's very, very Birds slash Beatlesy, right? It's got that kind of thing that
Yeah,
Petty again
which
does very,
appeals to
very well.
me,
Yeah,
appeals to me quite a bit. So
for sure. And again, a really good solo in this one. I like Campbell. We talk about him all the time, and I don't think his name ever comes up in conversations of the great rock and roll guitar players outside the Petty fandom. But just as a musician and listening to this catalog critically, Running Down a Dream, if anyone's going to pick the Mike Campbell solo, it's probably going to be that one. But the stuff he's done on these later albums where it's so laid back. He's just picking fewer notes, but they're exactly the right notes, wringing all the emotion out of me. It's just such a good solo again. And I'm starting to appreciate those types of solos a little bit more than the pyrotechnic ones, to be honest.
he's such a good guitarist, and seeing him live so many times, I've had so many like tipsy conversations with other guys in the audience, and like,
Yeah.
listen to it. Like, I had an old guy who was just got a kick out of my age being at a Petty show or whatever because I was younger than the average
Yeah.
demographic, and he's like, "You gotta listen to Mike Campbell." I'm like, I know Mike Campbell. Like, I know he's awesome. Like, you don't need to explain it to me. Like, I was in from the start. Like, he's amazing. And I think the reason he flies under the radar is because he's so unassuming. He's not a big showman, like a showman.
Yeah.
I think Heartbreakers in general, their music don't lend itself to these massive solos. So he has to be sort of like work it into whatever is the song needs, as opposed to being one of these guys like Eddie Van Halen who's going to go out and do the song is built around his solo.
Yeah.
Like there's two different vibes. And I think there's his personality is just completely, he doesn't seem to like the spotlight. I think this, Dirty Knobs thing has been an adjustment for him to be the lead guy. And I think he's always been comfortable being the really, really, really talented sidekick to Tom Petty.
Absolutely. Yeah. And really, really put a few more reelies in there because, again, the
really
more I listen
good.
to him,
Yeah.
God almighty.
Oh, it's so good.
something
He's my
else.
favorite. I mean, I think he's the most underrated classic rock guitarist, and he's my favorite. But I mean, I'm not unbiased.
Yeah. Geez, I mean, we're fans. We don't need to be unbiased, John.
That's true. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the two of them together, too, people talk about twin guitar bands. And again, no one talks about Petty and the Heartbreakers. And I think that's the point as well, right? Mike always knew what to play with Tom, specifically for Tom or with Tom. And so when they're sitting in the room and they're figuring their parts out, they're just so in sync with, well, I'm going to play this pattern. Okay, well, I'll move my inversion on the guitar to here, or I'll play a little bit of a lead lick or whatever it might be just to fill in the space. You're singing now, I'll back off. I mean, those kinds of sensibilities and understanding, like you said, playing for the song, again, basically peerless. I don't think there's anyone who did it better. Some guys who did it probably as good, but no one did it better.
Yeah, the only thing, listening to his audiobook, I drove up to Tahoe and then back and then listened to his Mike Campbell's audiobook on the way up. And while I was listening to it, I was stopping as he was referring to songs like that were like his influences and stuff. I would stop and I would call the song up on Spotify and listen to it, or I would listen if he's talking about a Petty song, I'd listen to that. So it was just made the drive. It was an 8 to 10 hour drive, and it made it so much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
But the only sense I got with Campbell ever being like, I really wish he would have consulted me on this, was the talking about the track list of the first album and why they reversed it and put American Girl last.
Yeah.
He's like, it doesn't seem to me like that would be the best way to, put your best song last, but what do I know? That's what he said. And I was like, a little bit of like, oh, maybe you should have asked him, like, is he the deciding vote? Because he would have kept it the same, right?
Well, I mean, we talk about this stuff lots with. I mean, debut album.
Yeah.
The band's not getting the final say anyway.
Yeah.
That's going to be the label who says, no, we're going to do it this way. But I mean, we talked about that. I mean, American Girl, last track on it, it's madness. It's absolute madness. Rocking around with you to start. I don't know.
And then if American Girls First is Breakdown 9,
I think so, yeah. Which
that'd
again
be
is
almost as bad.
it, almost as bad, but you could definitely see why you would put, if you're going to leave a strong song later, of the two,
Yes,
it's
of the
going to be
two,
Breakdown, right? So just because of the
of the
mood of
two.
it and the pace of it, and
But
you know,
the answer is neither.
yeah.
Go like on the second half of the album.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, well, did you put together an EP, or have you just gone for your producer for the day? Have you got
I
your three songs?
haven't do the EP. So if it
Okay,
is the EP, is it 3 songs?
that's what we usually do, yeah. But we can
Okay,
we can
so
adapt.
I know what I would pick.
Yeah.
So, and it is, I guess there's one decision.
Okay.
That's tough, but I would do Saving Grace and Square One for sure, and then it's between Down South and Big Weekend, and I think I would go with Down South just because it's kind of picked up some steam after um in recent years. So I would
Yeah.
probably go with Saving Grace, Square One, and Down South.
I went with Down South Square One and Big Weekend, and I left off Saving Grace just because I think most people, if you know any sort of Petty, you probably have heard that song.
I
So
don't know if that's true because I've
maybe not.
certainly like I mean, but I understand why you did that. That actually is good
Yeah,
reasoning behind that. So
yeah,
we ended up with the same four. Like if we did a 4-song EP, those are the 4 that we would have picked if we had
yeah,
4. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a good 4 songs. I mean, I think, like I said, those are my tens off the album. And I think I could make pretty strong arguments for why I've given all, and I did make strong arguments for why I've given all those tens. I was thinking about that too. I mean, you think about that. I've given Square One, Down South, Big Weekend a 10, and Refugee and American Girl. Okay, I mean, are those songs of that caliber? I think they are. They're just not the same type of song, and they haven't had the same. American
Impact.
Girl's had 40 years of being, one of the most iconic rock songs of all time, where Big Weekend was buried at track 7 on an album that no one really listened to in the mainstream in 2006 from an aging rocker. So they're just the different points in this guy's trajectory, right? But I think the quality, just the quality of the performance, the writing, Petty just kept getting better. I'll argue that all day with anyone.
It's your podcast. You can do whatever
Exactly.
you want, and if you want to hand out tens like candy on Halloween, that's totally fine.
There you go, folks. Get off my back. John Paulsen said it's okay. I can give as many tens out as I like.
Yeah. Reese's peanut butter cup for you,
Right.
for everyone.
Okay. I don't do peanut butter.
Oh, it's my
Awful.
favorite.
Ugh.
Love it. Love it.
You probably like strawberries too, don't you? Ugh, sick.
Yeah.
Sick. All right. What's your producer today? What are you doing with the album then? So if you've got these 2 songs that you're bringing in, I'm curious how much you've resequenced as well as replacing things.
I had to do a little bit of resequencing, and the primary reason was I didn't want 2 tracks with the word rose on the same side.
Yeah.
I said it was okay to have it on the album. He wrote the song, so, and I wanted to keep it to 12 because he was very adamant in the book about wanting to keep it to 12. That
Yeah.
he at some point, I didn't realize this with him because a lot of those, Echo, I think Last DJ, they all went over, didn't they?
Yeah.
Or no, Last DJ was 12, but Echo was 15.
Echo was 15. She's the One was 15. Wildflowers was 15. Mojo is 15. But, we talked about that a little bit with Echo, even where I said I still think that if you trim Echo down to 12 songs, I think it just becomes a stronger album overall.
Yeah, I gotta get rid of Rhino Skin. Anyway, so I wanted to keep it to 12, and it made sense. The 2 tracks that I wasn't crazy about, Night Driver and Jack. So
Yeah.
replace those, but maybe not directly. So what I have is the first 4 songs are the same: Saving Grace, Square One, Floating with Time, and Down South, and then Around the Roses at 5.
Okay.
To replace Jack, and then Turn This Car Around. And I think, I listened to this. I listened from Down South to the end right before the podcast, and it actually sequenced really well. I mean, with the first 4, we don't need to make any changes with anyway.
Yeah.
Turn This Car Around would end the side A. Big Weekend opens it. Damaged by Love, no changes. No, there is a change there. Big Weekend, and then Damaged by Love moves up a spot, right? And then Home at 9.
Okay.
And this is because I didn't want to go Big Weekend into Home because
Okay.
they're both kind of up-tempo rockers. So Damaged by Love, slowing things down after Big Weekend, picking things back up with Home. And then I also like the Home to This Old Town transition because you're also talking about kind of the same subject matter, but one's more positive, and maybe now the person's kind of soured on the city or the home that he's at or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So Home into This Old Town and wrapping things up the same way with Ankle Deep and The Golden Rose.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm gonna obviously whenever you put your you put your producer today, I always make the playlist and listen to it. And I always think, yeah, I think John's onto something there. You got a good ear for this stuff. Um, for me it was I just replaced Jack with Home. So side B is the same. So side A then becomes Saving Grace Square One, Floating with Time Down South. And again, I mean, those four, they are sequenced perfectly. So I don't think you ever change those. And then Home into Turn This Car Around. And I think that same for the same reason, Down South, build it back up again into Home and then drop it back down for Turn This Car Around. And that sequence and that same idea that you went with definitely works. So
I think that absolutely works. And the reason I didn't do that was just the word rose.
yeah,
Being on the side, I would be uncomfortable having that track or that word show up twice on a side.
we'll go back to.
I think that's probably reserved for the word love. That's the only one that's allowed to
no,
show up.
Def Leppard, man. The rock is a word in every like 15 titles on every album of this.
Def Leppard again.
Yeah. Remember, there's an English comedian named Ed Gamble. He said he was at some festival there, and he said one of these legacy acts, said, like a Def Leppard or a Motley Crue or somebody, come on stage, and they said they're just singing about how hard they're going to rock us. It's like, well, you better get on with it. You're off in half an hour.
Pour Some Sugar on Me is a good track.
Oh, dude, I can't do it. I just can't deal with that band at all.
What was it? Was it Pyromania? What's the first album or second
No,
album? Which was the big hit?
Pyromania was the third album. So I only know
Okay.
this because I ended up covering it on another podcast. I was tortured with it by my co-host. It was the third album. The first two albums were more kind of, I suppose, a little bit metal-y. And then it was Pyromania and then Hysteria and Adrenalize. And that's when they just abandoned all fucking pretense, all pretense of being any sort of credible rock band and just decided to use drum machines. And you've got a drummer. Okay, he's only got one arm. Use a drummer,
I was actually impressed with his drumming for only having one arm.
Oh, it's very impressive. It's just very impressive drumming in bad songs. so, I was talking with a friend of mine about this, and it'd be a good question. I don't think we've ever talked about this. So, if you talk about, you referenced Van Halen earlier, or you listen to any of the sort of the big hard rock acts. I've heard people say, "Oh, I don't love the song. It's not a great song, but the solo really saves it for me." A great solo is never going to save a bad song for me. Like, I can say, okay, yeah, that's a really good solo, just in a very weak song. So is that something that, like, one part of a song can really save? I mean, you talked about, Turn This Car Around, but I don't think that's really in the same conversation. But like a solo specifically, would that ever save a song that you don't like otherwise?
Well, I think a solo specifically, what they're talking about is how important the solos are to those tracks, the type of music that they're listening to that they like. We mentioned
Maybe.
like Van Halen song could be saved maybe by a really awesome solo. Certainly there's certainly Van Halen songs that are enhanced by the solo. I don't know if it would save it, but
Yeah.
I think on this album, Turn This Car Around is saved by that, for me, is saved by that middle section. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't know
Fair
if
enough.
I would have left it on, just for that one, the groove. I just think it's almost too repetitive. But so you have to have that break.
Okay, so let's play imagine then. If let's say then that's the case where it didn't have that bridge in it, doesn't have that section in it, does that change then how you would resequence the album? Like, which of the two songs that you put, would you put back one of the two songs that you took off?
I don't know that those would have been. I'd have to listen to those three together and somehow take out this amazing section in the middle of Turn This Car Around to really determine which two of the three I would have dropped if I were to drop two. I might have gone to 11 songs, but
okay, interesting.
That seems rude to cut three and to only put two on. But I think he did leave two off that were very worthy of making it.
Yeah. Well,
but it's also just like Jack. It just, there's something about it that bugs me a little. I don't like. Right. I would never put it on
Right.
but I don't think it's a bad song. And I think the same thing with Night Driver. It's just something that just doesn't resonate with me
Yeah.
at this point. So,
Again, on another podcast, we always talk about like you wouldn't skip it. You know, if you listen to
right,
Highway Companion, it's not like you're going to skip it, but it's definitely never going to make a playlist. And you wouldn't give it to someone to say, "Oh, listen to this
oh
Tom Petty
yeah,
song that you've never heard before." Right? It's not one of the ones you're going to do that with, right?
right.
And that's fine. And I think the other thing too, with every, I think Petty is one of those artists where it probably 95% of his catalog would be someone's favorite song. Like every single one of Petty's songs will be someone's favorite Petty song. Where it's definitely not the case with all artists. You're going to have 50% maybe would be. But there are some songs, and I don't know that Jack would be. I can't imagine anyone saying Jack is my favorite Tom Petty song.
Unless he's named Jack
Well, there you go. Could be a bit of
or married to a Jack. I don't know.
right to a jack off. I don't know.
Language.
I'm all feisty today. I don't know what's going on,
Yeah.
John. Getting my podcast personas mixed up. All right. Is there anything else we need to talk about on Highway Companion?
I don't think so. So do you have this on vinyl?
I do. Yeah, I picked it
Do you,
up.
do you have everything on vinyl?
The only
What's
two albums I don't have She's the One, Songs and Music from She's the One. It's a bit of a tougher one to find because it was only pressed once, or there might have been one reissue, but there's not that many of them kicking around, and it's about $170-ish. So I will pick it up eventually, but I don't have that one, and I don't have an original pressing or like just Wildflowers. Like I have Wildflowers and all the rest of the 6 vinyl set, but I don't just have Wildflowers. So at some point I'll definitely
Which
have to
is
pick that up too.
Well, that's the collector in you who wants to pick it up, but you do
Yeah.
have you do have that actual sequence on vinyl.
Yes, I do.
It's part of this whole collection. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I have
So
and I have Angel Dream, right? I got the Angel Dream release, the She's the One. So I've got most of that album on vinyl, but just not everything. Which again,
it was
the
interesting.
completionist
Yeah,
thing.
it was interesting that they decided to do the Angel Dream.
Yeah.
I'm glad they did it because we got 105 degrees
Yeah.
out of it, which wow, that's a good one.
Well,
Yeah,
and
I would. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, and I think the sequence on that album, it is a different album. It's not She's the One. It is sort of even with the same songs, it's a completely different album. But I like it shows that this producer for the day thing that we do, it is fun to do, and that's kind of what they were doing, right? It's okay. Well, let's bring in these other tracks and let's change it up a little bit. We'll take off, we don't need
All
two
the
versions
Wildflower
of Walls
stuff,
and
yeah.
two versions. We'll take, do all that kind of stuff, and let's see what we end up with. It's fun to do.
They took off all the Wildflower stuff for the
Yeah.
Wildflowers package, and then they repackaged that, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I would say overall, this album, grew on me during as and this is like you could just rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Like this whole process has been a lot of fun because I've discovered at least one or two additional songs that I really like, and like even listening to like Around the Roses and Home, having an opportunity to listen to those again, those are going to definitely make some of my playlists, and I got to put those on like the B-sides,
Yeah.
quality B-sides playlist that I have because I like to turn that on because sometimes because it's like my stuff my wife hasn't heard a lot of, and she's like, "Oh, what's this? Where's this one from?" And it gets us
Yeah.
going, talking about what album it was on, and keeps her getting in deeper into the Tom Petty fandom as well. But and then this sort of brings the Jeff Lynne era to a close.
Yeah.
I think it fits in interestingly with everything that Full Moon Fever, Into the Great Wide Open, the Wilbury stuff, and then this. Like I think it'd be interesting to put those like all those tracks together, or do just a Jeff Lynne Petty type playlist would be an interesting one to have
Yeah.
for a summer day or a drive,
Yeah.
through California or something. Uh, it- the thing that struck me was looking at my list of albums. I've got all the albums sort of as playlists in Spotify, and I'm just looking at his discography and how things are spacing out now, and how it's getting longer and longer between albums. And
Yeah.
you could sense that he's not. I mean, I think you are a lot more prolific as younger, but I think he also went through a really prolific stage with Wildflowers. She's the One, Echo. A lot of drama in his life.
Yeah.
To where, and I have a point here. Just stay with me. You sense that he's a lot more comfortable in his life here, and he's more reflective, and he's happier, and there isn't as much necessarily for him to sit down and write about that's negative or coming from a darker place because he did so well with that, right?
Yeah.
This is more of like, oh, I'm okay getting older. I'm comfortable with my relationship. I'm happy. I'm trying to, this old town, I'm trying to like create some negative vibes about a city or something. And it's not about relationships really, except for maybe damaged by love.
Right.
Um, Square one, maybe wistful, but really just a, a songwriter very comfortable in his skin and comfortable with his craft with this album. And
Absolutely.
maybe not as prolific, but still some really quality stuff.
And just, I mean, the thing that I always find, and doing this podcast and really digging in, it's just always, Petty's always interesting. There's always those things that's a really weird turn of phrase, or it's an unusual way to approach or an angle to come in to a song from. You know what I mean? And so he never lost that. And like I said, I mean, I will argue to my dying breath that he just kept getting better as a songwriter. And of course, we said like American Girl, Refugee, Listen to Her Heart, even The Losers. When you start getting into that era, they're just massive, massive, iconic, foundational classic rock songs. But just in terms of the songwriting craft and the way, he changes form, or he'll come in and out of a bridge differently, or he'll turn around, or he'll use different structures. That definitely kept getting better as he got older. Because Petty was a student of the craft up until the last song he wrote, right?
Are we doing Mudcrutch next, or are we going right to Mojo?
Mojo. So my plan is Mojo next, Hypnotic Eye, then go back, and then I got a decision to make about whether I go straight to Mudcrutch after that, or whether we go back and start talking about, Casadega and keeping him alive and all the outtakes. I think I might go that route just so we can finish up Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, go to Mudcrutch, go to the Wilburys, go to the Dirty Knobs, go to the Blue Stingrays, go to Ben, Benmont stuff. Have you ever listened to that Blue Stingrays album? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
That's a surf rock, right?
Yeah, it's fun, man. It's just fun.
I might have turned it on.
Yeah,
that actually sounds familiar. Maybe I did turn it on at one point.
It's gorgeous blue vinyl. I picked it up on blue vinyl. It's beautiful. Mike's got a new album out though. It's coming out fairly soon, right? I don't think it's out yet, but looking forward to that one too. So, yeah, pick it up on vinyl too. But we should wrap things up. Let these people get on with their lives, maybe.
Yep. Another good album.
Another good album, and we got another man. I always love asking Mojo, because again, if you've not listened to these later albums as much, my God, there's some good stuff on Mojo. And again, you get that band back in, they're recording in the room together, off the floor, live, without headphones, which we'll end up talking about a little bit, because there is a difference there with, Benmont said, I hate wearing headphones. I want to hear what the other guys are doing, right? So, and then again, Hypnotic Eye. So we've got 2 album wraps in this part of the podcast to go. And then, geez, I don't know what I have to sit down and figure out how the hell I'm going to do all these B-sides, how I glump them. I do one season up to, I was thinking maybe I would do one season up to Wildflowers. I mean, there's so much on Wildflowers. There's the 10 songs plus the alternate takes, plus the demos I've got to talk about in some fashion. And maybe that's me and you just jump on and we talk about those without actually doing individual episodes or something. But there's so much stuff yet to talk about, which I'm very glad about because I'm not sick of doing this yet. So
I would suggest breaking them up into sections of 10 to 15, because that seems like it's an album sized, group of songs, and then try to do it in a way that's chronological. I mean, the playback box set's got a whole disc of it, and it's just a lot.
Well, there's some homework for you then. You carve it up and you make a suggestion to me how you think I should carve it up, and we'll go that route.
All right, you got it.
I'm outsourcing work from the Tom Petty project here too. Okay, well, until we meet again next week, keep listening to and sharing Tom's music. Try to be kind. Try to say I love you to someone at least once a day. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll be back with you next week. I'm not too sure what next week's episode is going to be yet. I think it's going to be a special one with my brother, potentially. Until then, bye-bye.